Do you remember what you wrote in your essays?
I do. So my personal essay for my Common App, so my personal statement, I wrote about, it was more short story-esque, but I wrote about working backstage. I wrote about it as, the core of it was that I felt like stories were people and they were keeping me company. They were kind of my friends and my colleagues throughout my 4 years of high school, and experiences of being backstage and kind of being in that environment and feeling like you are able to unpack what's happening to your experiences you have through those stories, and being able to be in conversation with them, and to feel supported by them, supported by authors and thinkers and writers and actors from like decades or centuries ago. That was what my personal statement was about. I did also write kind of a nonfiction essay for my portfolio about Sailor Moon. So my Tisch essay was about Sailor Moon, because something that I love about Sailor Moon specifically is that the main character of Sailor Moon is always scared. She cries at least once every episode. She is not very brave. She's not very smart. She's not the strongest in the group. And she doesn't seem to possess the traditional qualities of a leader, right? Like, she's not really a traditional kind of leader of the group, the biggest shining star of, like, she's not like Captain America or Iron Man of the Avengers. But at the end of the day, she always ends up beating the bad guy. And I love that the whole point of the character was that you're scared and you can cry and you can not want to, but if you kind of hold on to this core set of values of like fighting for good, at the end of the day, you can get that done and you can be successful, and that there's so much power in that. And so as a high school student who was rather socially awkward, not the coolest, not very popular, that really struck a chord with me. And I really wanted to write stories that were like that. And I wrote a lot about writers or creators like Tina Fey, Mindy Kaling, who were kind of my idols at the time. I went through a phase in high school where I would listen to the audiobook of Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me by Mindy Kaling, or almost every single day that I could recite it. But so I wrote about these influences and that I had picked up on, and why they were significant to me, and what kind of storytelling I would want to do as a creator myself, or as a thinker myself, or what I was interested in, which is a really big part of the Tisch application. So whatever discipline you're applying for, it's really important to show, it's less important to show, look at all of the things I know how to do, and more like, this is the kind of artist I would like to become, and I would like to learn how to become. And I think that was the core of that essay. And I think it was cute. It was kind of fun, and I don't think a lot of people write about animation in general, like that kind of animation in general, especially like more than a decade ago, but also specifically Sailor Moon. Yeah.
I remember writing my essays because I don't remember a lot about it. Actually, wait, I want first to ask you, how did you get to that? Was writing essays easy for you? As you said, you were kind of reader-writer type.
Yeah.
Was it more finding the topic that was the issue?
I had a lot of difficulty finding what to write about in a way that was uplifting of myself.
Yeah, you were spoiled for choice?
I had a lot of topics. I had a lot of things I wanted to write about or put into words. But I had difficulty finding something that would put me down as an attractive candidate versus come across as like self-deprecating and like sad and like
you do have to kind of sell yourself.
Yeah, you have to sell yourself a little bit, but most people who are applying to be like a theater or film studies major are not people who are like, unless you're applying to be an acting major, you're not like, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful, look at me here, please take me. So I had a lot of ideas, but I had to kind of find something that would be able to put me in a more positive light. And I did struggle with that a little. And And so I kind of, this is not, less true today. Back in the day, there were not a lot of Asian Americans applying to film school. Definitely the game has totally changed in the last decade. But back in the day, it was not the case. And so I thought maybe it might be more interesting for me to talk about other influences that I had. And once I started thinking about that, I leaned heavily into animation. And then I kind of stumbled across something that was already in me. I had found it. Once I found it, it was really easy for me to put it down into words. I wrote a lot in high school. It wasn't that hard for me. I think it was much more difficult to write the why school essays. And I think hopefully we'll talk a little bit more that might make that.
We can help you with at least 2 schools.
We'll help you with, hopefully the previous episodes have been helpful. We'll definitely give you some of the insider info on those.
So for me, I was a very typical high-achieving academic, extrovert, social person. I wasn't like a cool kid, but I had a hand in a lot of these social groups.
You were definitely part of the community.
Yeah, I was very active. The PTA knew more about me than I knew about myself. Which is scary.
That's a little weird.
But I was very typical in that way, and so my essays did come from that kind of area. I think being able to not talk about yourself positively, that's a universal experience. Regardless of who you are or what kind of person you are, it's hard to sell yourself. It's hard to find those aspects and those qualities that you would think highly of yourself and think others would think highly of yourself. So a lot of times try to go to your friends and your family and ask them about things and run topics by them. A lot of times you try to strive towards a certain generic ideal that ends up being really generic, and anyone could write that essay. And then, so you want to go more specific. You want to dig a little bit more into who you are. For me, I wrote about, in my big Common App personal statement essay, about a time in the summer when I was putting together a metal Lego set. So it wasn't Lego, but it's just metallic, put together kind of DIY projects, sort of Eiffel Tower. And it wasn't that itself that was the core of the essay, but it was more about this idea of doing things just for fun, for the love of for lack of a better term, love of the game, just to do things for the sake of doing it, for
Without
the sake of getting
purpose.
the experience and the task of having done it and feeling accomplishment in that. So it's kind of an academic curiosity. I will work very hard for you kind of essay. I kind of cringe reading it back because my sister's applying and I read it once and I was like, ugh. I think the more interesting essay I wrote was about an experience I had as a translator for, it was a Euro-Asian parliamentary conference, and I found a role as a translator there. I did that for a couple weeks in the summer, and I was a translator for the Armenian delegation, which was fine. But what happened was that there was a particular altercation when there was a bus that would go to the Blue House, which is the place where the president lives in Korea. Not now, but where the president usually is. And the delegations were supposed to go to the Blue House for a dinner, but they had to reserve spots ahead of time. And I don't think the Armenian delegation was not completely aware of this. So they had already booked 1 seat for them ahead of time, but the Azerbaijani delegation had 2 seats. And there is a conflict between the two that is quite tense and heated. And when the Armenian delegation found out that the Azerbaijani delegation would have 1 more seat, they refused to leave the bus or ride the bus until they would give them another seat, which was hard because of logistics and how everything was planned. It was not going to happen. But I remember them yelling and trying to communicate, and because I was one of the only people there who could speak English and Korean, it was me going from both of them talking to me to speaking as much best Korean I can to the White House aide, the Blue House aide, who was just in shambles and panicking and calling people as well. And so I was talking about how at that point it kind of felt like all these things I'd read about, these tensions and in the news, it was very theoretical and very abstract. But in that moment, you can see how it actually spills over into something as small or something that seems as insignificant to me at that point, which was just a spot in a dinner. And it feels like there's something very easy, it's just kind of whatever about, but it's an important political bargaining chip and tool and a display of power. And I won't say it's petty, but it's still those small things in politics that flare up. And that was really interesting to me. And so I was a political science major student. And so I said that's kind of where I saw it happen in real life. as a high school student the first time.
Right. I think that this is a really good distinction that different applications for different kind of programs need to have. Lots of liberal arts schools, especially like humanities-oriented schools, you want to write about things that you have done or experiences you have. If you are applying more for the arts, it's slightly more conceptual. It's like kind of how you think or ideas you have or values you have. So I think that kind of shows up nicely in how our essays were different for college.
And then I wrote another essay on Reddit.
On Reddit?
Because I was I was active for the 2018 World Cup. I was one of the match threaders.
Ooh.
To create match threads for the games itself and like updating inside the post, talking about like 28 minutes, like there was like a chance.
Nice.
And just being part of that community, wanting to give back to a community that I'd always been very active in. That was kind of what I was talking about. I think that the prompt is just for the Brown application. It was something like talk about a place or a community you call home. Or not home, but you talk about a place or something that is part of your community.
That's very interesting.
So I wrote about that.
Yeah. That sounds like a really interesting take on that prompt.
And then I always say that the extra spice on my essay is that in 2017 I uploaded a 9-second video called Rhyming with Barney, and you can find it if you search up on YouTube right now in the search bar. Finish this video first, but then you can look up Rhyming with Barney, and the second or the third link. My face is just there. The channel's Joon. It's a meme video uploaded. I put it on, I think it's like YouTube Haiku or something like that, where it's like very short videos, and it blew up. And I think it was on like reaction channels. It was in a playlist back then called like Important Videos, and it got a lot of views that way. And it's kind of nice that I made a viral video.
It's very funny.
And so
you made me watch it.
For the more quirky schools, the ones that I knew were a little less serious and were willing to engage in that kind of shenanigans, I put it as like, there's like a link in the comment where it's like, would you want like your portfolio or like your art piece or something? I put it there as like a for fun thing.
I think that's cute.
And I say that's what got me over the edge. Probably not, but it's like a fun thing. So if you have like small fun things that are college admissions safe for work.
Right. Not technically related.
No, not at all.
But just safe. Like it's not something that is offensive. It's not something that would.
It just kind of displays kind of who you are, like who you are a little bit. Like what do you do? It gives you a better insight into the character, because it's hard to determine character from even a lot of essays and the resume and courses. But if those are small things that distinguish you,
right.
I'm hoping that in the circles, like in the Brown admissions team circles, like, oh, that the YouTube video guy or like the Barney guy. I hope that was brought up that way.